we're just going to open it up for questions here. Derek will spend about 15 minutes, and then Jeffers will come in to follow Derek. Yeah. Yeah, they're on each side.
Hi, Derek.
Hi, Phil.
How will you? What are your plans to change the pitching staff roster for the next round?
I don't really want to change the pitching staff much at all right now. These guys are throwing the ball great. I would say, at this stage, obviously we talked about round one being unique. With a 3-game set, you're all in for really every night, and ultimately now we'll think about it. I mean, I think at this stage we haven't finalized anything. We'll still talk about what could be what we just did with a 14 and 12. I think more traditionally you'll see more 13 and 13 in this round. Those will be the conversations we're probably going to have over the next 24 hours just to see where everyone is, see how everyone's doing physically. We obviously came through that series hopefully in a good spot, though. It got a little tricky there at the end with a few guys getting dinged up, but everyone feels really good. So we'll see how everyone's tracking through tomorrow's workout and make that call on Saturday.
Do you have a preliminary evaluation at all on whether your health situation, whether with Royce or Buck, could change for this next round?
Yeah, so I would say for each guy, right? I know Carlos did post-game last night, and it's the postseason, and he's ready to go. Obviously, that thing's going to be pretty sore today. He got hit pretty hard there, but good signs based on what we saw last night from an imaging standpoint. And everything's good on with respect to Royce came out of it. I mean, he probably won't share too much of it. He was battling, right? You got to battle. You're dealing with hamstring tightness, so he battled through that just like other guys have battled through things, but credit to him, obviously, the way he played through the series. He's feeling good. In Buck's case, it's still, I would say, just kind of day-to-day at this point. He'll travel with us. He'll continue to work. He'll continue to get some ABs and things we can do on the field. That'll be the plan, and we'll assess that come Saturday, just like we did the last series.
Hey, Derek, I'm sorry, Lavelle Neal, Star Tribune. Was there a point during the season where you realized that you're going to have to get creative with how to equip the bullpen?
Yeah, I would say we always had a vision for what some of these guys could look like in the bullpen that were starting for us or healthy. Once we got healthy, I think what we saw in this series was kind of a combination of that, right? Brock Stewart, middle of this year, when he stepped up for us this year, was electric. I mean, all due respect to Joan, who has amazing stuff, and Griffin and all those guys, he fit right in with those guys. I mean, he had stuff as good as them. Obviously, he dealt with some injury stuff in the middle of the year, came back in a really good way, and now is throwing what I saw from him yesterday looked a lot like what we expected and hoped to see. I think Louis Varland going to the bullpen, we knew there'd be some ticks up in velocity there and some adrenaline going, but his role, Chris Paddock, what we've been able to see. So we always had a vision for those guys playing a role in this all the way through, and fortunately it's come together at the right time. Guys are healthy at the right time, but give a credit to Joan, to Griffin, and to Caleb, Emilio, all these guys who've been there all year. And Griffin having to go through the heart of that order, back-to-back days in big spots, that's not easy to do. I credit all those guys for the way they've pitched. I think they've been kind of the unsung heroes at times of the way we've navigated this season, and really proud of what they've done.
Have you thought at all about how remarkable the roster changes have been since, Correa?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been in this room a lot. Correa,
Yep.
Pablo,
Yep.
et cetera, minor league guys coming up. Is that, I guess if you would review that, what do you think of kind of the upheaval you've had to go through to get to this point?
Yeah, I think the reality is in pro sports now, and certainly in baseball, it feels like if you're always trying to find a way to get better, you got to make some tough decisions. You got to keep iterating. You got to keep looking at what worked, what didn't work, and evaluate that. And there have been times where we looked at our roster and said, okay, this doesn't fit perfectly, or this isn't going to work perfectly. And then we take another crack, and there's another run at it, and it's not the right mix, or maybe there's a spot we're missing, and we learn that. Only thing we can commit to is to try and continue to learn how we can make it better, right, as a group. And that's our staff, that's our coaches, that's our scouting personnel, that's our development people. What I'm proud of right now organizationally is that roster, when you break it down, has almost every facet of our organization touching it, right? That's unique. And I think, some teams are built almost, exclusively through free agency at the top, and some are all internally homegrown. I think we've found a way to actually make guys who are lesser profile guys in the draft or internationally turn them into what they are now. And it's credit to the players first and foremost, but it's a huge credit to the staff and the resources that have been put around them, the investment we've had behind the scenes in baseball operations that's owed to the Paulette family, to Jim and to Joe over the time I've been here. I mean, just this is when it all comes together, and you can feel proud about the work that's been done that leads into it.
Derek, you always talk about the importance of starting pitching depth, but you also need to have guys like who can do game 1 and game 2 starts in the playoffs that you have in Lopez and Gray. How much is that kind of a part of your annual roster evaluations, knowing you need capable starters, but you also want that top tier too if you're going to do anything in the playoffs?
Yeah, you hope you can get there right away, right? You're always trying to figure that out, but ultimately you need depth through the season, which this team showed in spades. I think it's just the way they went about it kept, the guys that kept stepping up. I mean, we've talked about them a ton, but Castro and Farmer and Solano and Taylor, obviously, like some of these guys, they've been just so instrumental. But you do need in playoff baseball, you do need the guys at the front end that can be horses for you, and you need some guys that have been there before, that have navigated those challenging emotional waters, right, that are out there. That's what Carlos brings. That's what Michael Taylor brings. So I think that when I look at the pitching staff and I think about what we've done to get to that point, in Pablo and Sonny leading us, but thinking what's coming behind it with Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, Kenta Maeda, Louis Varland, all these guys, Chris Paddock, that have been starters that are playing a role for us. They've all gotten better in different ways. They've all been different versions of what they are today at different years prior to today. So I think it's a true testament to a lot of work that went in behind the scenes by those players in the offseason to get themselves ready to be what they could be.
Hey, Derek, you guys for a minute there, it looked like Houston was going to be your first round opponent. Now you get them. How prepared are you guys, like from a scouting and strategy kind of standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, we did. We thought that right the last week. I know everyone was asking, what do we think this is going to shake out at? I think that was the odds-on favorite for a good chunk of that week, that it was looking like it was going to be Houston. So we were preparing then, just as we were for, Toronto and Texas and Seattle and a few others that were in that mix. But certainly now feel like we're ready to go down there. They're the World Series champs, and they've been in that seat for a long time. They are a really good team. They've been a really good team for a long time. We respect everything that they do. So we're going to have to play an A game to keep up with that. We know that, and so they're rested. They're ready. Hopefully, we're ready to go. Getting these 2 days, I think, really helps, and we'll see how everything shakes out come Saturday.
Some of the younger guys were saying this was a new experience, even winning and how the crowd was. But you mentioned you have Carlos and you have Michael. When you have someone like Buck too that's still around the guys, how valuable is that for the younger guys moving forward here? Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we've talked a lot about Carlos and about Michael and about guys who've been there before. But Dallas Keuchel's in that clubhouse. He's been through these experiences, and he's talking to guys behind the scenes. I think that's really invaluable. You can't put a price on that, and ultimately. That we've seen play out. But when you talk about Byron, and I've walked around that clubhouse, there's a bunch of guys in that room, Byron being one that's been here a long time, big part of this. And obviously he wants to be on the field and help, but he knows the role he can play behind the scenes with these guys. Nick Gordon has as much energy in that room as anybody today, right now, and he hasn't been able to play as much as he'd like. I went up and gave a big hug to Joey Gallo. He's working hard to get out there. I know it's been a trying season for him, but that's what's so special about this team so far and the way they've gone about it is nobody isn't happy for the next guy on the team. It's not about just me. It's about, how do I help the group that's already in here? And if you can't play and you're not part of it or you're not healthy right now, you've still got a role to play. And we reminded all those guys that they're traveling with us to Houston. They're going to be a part of this all the way through. They're going to help us. They're going to lift some spirits when needed. So it's really a testament to the way the team has come together.
Hey, Derek, drafting Royce was one of the first major moves that you guys made. What were some of the characteristics back then, like off the field, that kind of showed you that he could be a star, and basically how gratifying is it watching him turn into that? Yeah, Royce, I mean, the history now is well documented, not going through everything. I think taking back to that time, first year here, you're picking 1-1, not something I'd ever done in my career to that point. And you just know that it's going to be important. And it was an interesting year. There were a lot of really talented players up top. It wasn't maybe one of those years where someone before the draft even started or before the year started, every once in a while there's a draft and you say that person's going up 1-1. You almost don't need to scout the spring. That wasn't like that. There were some really, really talented players up top, and we had to figure them all out. When we got a chance to meet Royce and meet his family, the thing that you look at is you try and assess the talent. That's our scouts' jobs, right? That's not my job. Those guys, Sean and his crew, and DJ, Mike Radcliffe, Tim O'Neill, all those guys, they do all the work to scout them up, and they had the talent, pegged. They were on point on that. Then you're trying to figure out, all right, 1-1 takes kind of a unique person. That's the one thing I did my research on before we selected him was 1-1 has a different target on their back. That's just reality. Like you get picked third, it's still
top 3 picks in the draft, but 1-1 has a label for a reason. And we wanted to know who could handle that, right? And Royce definitely from the get-go, when we talked to his parents, we talked to him, the maturity, the enjoyment of the game, the desire to go be better, because he was an athlete then. He was a good baseball player, don't get me wrong, but like anyone who tells you, he was a polished player at that time, we didn't see that. We saw a really good athlete, really good baseball skills and instincts and talent, but he was going to need some development and then he comes in, and we're seeing that early, we're seeing the signs, and then COVID hits, right? We have that 2020 season where we don't have a minor league season, so he doesn't get the same development, but he's having a nice alternate site, summer while we're trying to develop him more. Tears the ACL one time, comes back, tears the ACL a second time. I think what's missed in the Royce story is just not that he overcame the health challenges, which are incredible, but what he overcame from a lack of time playing baseball games standpoint. I mean, 2020, 2021, 2022, and now he's in an AL wild card, doing that. That's unique. So I think what's most gratifying is not so much just what he's overcome, because I've told him how proud I am of him, what he's overcome, but how much beyond just the health that he's had to overcome developmentally, and now he's here, and he's still got growth left. He knows that, but he has fun every time he's on the field. He creates energy for us. Those guys are all pulling for each other. It's a special group, and I'm glad he's a part of it for sure.
Derek, Joe was preparing to start this afternoon. Circumstances have changed now. Do you have cause to rethink? And how much does the opponent in ballpark matter when you decide who's going to start Saturday?
Yeah, there's definitely some considerations, every time you go into a series, matchups and who lines up, and that's true, and where your bullpen guys are going to slot and what that looks like in general. But I would say that, as it stands today, we'll work through that over the next 24 to 48 hours. Obviously, Joe's going to be a big part of this, as is Kenta, as Bailey, Pablo, Sonny. We have so many guys on this staff that could start games, and big games for us, and they're going to need to, and they're going to need to pitch well. But we'll work that out over the next couple of days and make sure that we're all synced up and lined up for going into Saturday.
Just in context of how good the offense was in the second half, you scored 3 runs, game 1, 2 yesterday. Does it feel encouraging that, one, you're able to get a sweep without a ton of offensive production, but that there's still kind of some untapped potential, or you guys are facing aces, and this is kind of
This is playoff baseball, man. Like you're trying to find a way to scratch a couple across somewhere in the middle of those innings, and then find a way to lock it down from there. And just across the board. I mean, I think there are some games that you see a few runs get scored, but vast majority of playoff baseball games, you're gonna have to find a way to get a big hit in a big spot, and then on the flip side, play great defense in a big spot when they get a chance to get the big hit. And I can't think of 2 games that are more emblematic of the pressure, the challenges, the take advantage of the right opportunity at the right time type of baseball that exists in October than these 2 games. And all our guys, defensively, offensively, everyone chipped in. Awesome.
Carlos said yesterday that this is why they brought me here. This is why they signed me. Is that true? Or I guess, to what extent, when you're looking to invest $200 million, are you thinking specifically about October?
I think you have to be. I think if you're investing in that kind of player, obviously that kind of talent and that kind of pedigree, you're doing it because not just to hope you win, a few games in July and August, right? This is what we all play for. This is the season that we're all hunting, and there's 30 clubs that are doing it, and they're really doing it well, all of them in different ways. We are fortunate to be among the last few, that are ultimately vying for this. But you bring in somebody like, you just watch over the last couple of days how he slowed the game down for, you see the visits to the mound, you see the way he talks to the rest of the group. They all lean into him. He knows it's not him himself, and he knows he hasn't been at his best all season. He's been battling through some things, not playing as well as he would like. He'd be the first to admit that. But and he did multiple times to you guys during different stretches of the season. But he slows the game down. He makes a big play. I said this the last couple of days. I'll say it again. That play at shortstop, the sprint to behind Polo to make that play at the plate is a game-altering play and a series-altering play, and in my opinion, one of the best plays I've seen in playoff baseball. I'd put it up there with any. So I think obviously the pick yesterday, this connection between Sonny and him and Ryan and timing and all these things and being able to make that call at the right time, that's all advanced thinking, and you need some guys that have been through this before, that have seen these moments, and it never gets too big for him. And yeah, he's brought here, so hopefully we can be playing some October baseball games and play them well.